Hey, everybody, and we're live. Today is Monday, May 23rd, and a big thank you to our special guest, Dan Barbarisi, is on the show promoting his book. You guys remember it, Chasing the Thrill, Obsession, Death, and Glory in America's Most Extraordinary Treasure Hunt. The link is down below. It's on Amazon. There's Kindle. There's an audiobook, hardcover, paperback. If you don't have it and you were involved in the chase, what are you waiting for? You have to get it. Thanks for coming on, Dan.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. It's been a while. It's about a year ago, I think. So here we are again.
Yeah. So again, if you guys don't have the book, this is the same book as before, except for it now has a new epilogue at the end. Dan was able to give an update, but I wanted you to talk to this first. Some people are like, is this a brand new book? Why now? Is this a conspiracy of what you're putting out now? And when was the final turn in? Because this is even outdated because we're living through it as well. So if you could answer all that.
Great questions, actually. Yes, those are good, like, author questions. I can answer all that. Yeah. So the way that, like, a book like this works is that, when the initial book comes out, which was last year, usually if they're happy with it, the publisher wants a paperback edition, and they usually want that almost exactly a year afterwards. So they set all that stuff in stone, a long, long time ago. And then, so first of all, no, it is definitely not a new book. It is the same book in the paperback edition, which then, goes in different kind of bookstores, and, you run to, like, airports, places like that, because not every place is going to stock hardcover books, which are more expensive and are bigger. And so, paperback books cost less money and go everywhere. So, they want those various editions. But with something like this, for a paperback edition, what they do is they, say, okay, is there anything you can add on? And they say, can you please write, like, an epilogue or something? I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So they gave me 1,400 words, and I think I used literally almost every single one. And so I wrote a little, epilogue that essentially catches things up to the point where I couldn't. Good question, Christy, on when actually that is. And so that was in January. And so that's basically any information I could get by January, I shoved in there. And as we all know, a lot has happened recently. And I would have been thrilled to get some of that stuff into the book, but I didn't know about it yet because it hadn't happened. So, which is, like, very galling for me, because this is probably the last time I'm going to get to do any kind of a major update to it without, barring some unforeseen circumstance. And I want to obviously have it be as complete a story as it can be, and so it's a little bit like, when, there's more information that's just come out, and I would love to, like, shove that in, but just doesn't work that way. Like, the book publishing world is like, I was a, daily newspaper journalist, and, like, okay, you do it yesterday, it goes in tomorrow's paper. And then it's like, okay, we're going to finish this in January and we'll see you in 5 months, and it's a little frustrating, but that is, the way of this world. So,
and we had a drought there for a while of information. The great part that you had, and a lot of people did not believe it. So let's talk a little bit about these new parts, because I know you said there's not a lot. For us, there is a lot, because we have been talking about some we's in the community, like heritage. I knew about heritage. We did a video about heritage months ago, but some said, unless I hear it from Jack, and Jack's not talking publicly, I don't believe it. So you had some things in here, and you were actually able to talk with Jack. So this isn't made up, or you're
it's not conjecture. It comes from the source.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you have some information in there about, so I want to go over the couple things. So you guys really do want to get this book. So Jack is trying to
give the whole thing away, Christy. Come on.
I won't give the whole thing. Maybe let's hit 2 or 3 points. Jack's selling the chest, and he put it at Heritage to get piecemealed around the world because it had to get appraised or inventoried or
it's a little bit, complicated, and I can't, say that I understand every exact bit of it, because it seems like, it would be easier than apparently it is. But, so Heritage wanted to break it up because that's how they saw that, they could sell it most effectively initially, and so they had the various pieces of it go to different appraisers and, people who deal with these and specialize in all different things. But as we know, there's a lot of different kind of stuff in there. It's not just a chest of gold coins. It's not just a chest of gold nuggets. It's a lot of different types of things. And so they had to send all these things out to different specialists who actually then take their time looking at it. And apparently, once they get to the specialists, and the specialists apparently are very backed up right now because people are selling all kinds of stuff, and we're doing so during the pandemic. There was a big boom on this stuff. Now, I didn't know anything about all this before dealing with this, but now I'm like a mini expert on, but like that, there's a big boom on appraising stuff, and people are selling lots of collections of things, and people are trying to make money off of precious metals and things like that during this time period. And so a lot of these places are really backed up. And so there was a big line for a lot of this stuff. And then I guess when they wanted to get it back, it was actually difficult for them to make sure they got all the pieces back in a timely fashion. And so, I would check with Jack every number of months, like, has there been any movement? Is this done yet? And he's like, I don't understand, man. No. And so I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to run out of time. I'm just going to put it in like that, and that's what it's going to be. But, having checked with him fairly recently on it, he said same situation, which, to me is like mind blowing. But, very little has changed in that. And that, apparently they are still dealing with getting it all dealt with and appraised and back together, because they don't want to pull this stuff until they actually have all the pieces appraised. That would be kind of self-defeating.
Right.
So, still dealing with that. And I think all of us thought this thing would be sold a very long time ago, and I'm kind of shocked it hasn't been, but there we are.
Yeah.
So I have a question. In the new epilogue, you say that Sothebys was the original choice, and they cooled on the idea. Do you have any idea why they passed?
It would just be speculation, but I think that was just not, again, speculation. But I think it's not the kind of thing they deal with so much. They deal with much more I don't know, single lots and things like that. And I don't know. It just seemed like, from what I was told, that they initially had some interest, and then they were kind of like, it's not really our thing. Why don't you try this other place that deals a lot more stuff that's more similar to that? Okay. So I don't really have a good answer for that, but I know that, initially there was interest and they were into it. And sometimes you can have where one person thinks it's cool to begin with, and your contact person, then they kick it upstairs and their boss is like, oh, nah, not really into that. So it could have been something like that. I really don't really know very well, but I know that, Heritage was recommended, and then, they moved it over there, and Heritage apparently was very into it. So.
Well, and the thing that I heard that I found fascinating, because kind of like you, when I heard about this, I'm like, what do you mean backed up? The coins, because so many people have coin collections and they're selling coin collections. The appraisal for the coins, of all things, I would have thought it was a specialty, the dragon bracelet,
the diamond bracelet, or the dragon bracelet or whatever. Yeah,
and it ends up being the coins, because so many people during the pandemic are selling their coin collections. I thought it'd be great to be an appraiser of coins right now. It sounds like they have more work than they know what to do.
I know. We missed out. We missed the boat on this one.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move to really just this bucket of conspiracies. You now come back a year later and you talk about some of the conspiracies in there. You were called into a lawsuit, let alone you have your own lawsuit, because, hey, everybody has to have one. Yeah. So talk a little bit about, you did contact various searchers. You talk about that. And how do you think the community has shifted at this point? Or maybe it's all the same, but what are your thoughts on that?
To the first point, it's definitely a tricky kind of place to be. Okay, I'll deal with how the community has shifted. I think you're going to have a situation like this where, the treasure is found and the situation is largely dealt with, and some people are satisfied with that answer and some people are not. And almost by definition, I would think that most of the people who are in it now are going to be in it because they believe that the story is not over in some way. That things have not been fully settled, that there is another shoe to drop, because otherwise, why would you be seriously involved anymore? Again, with some exceptions, absolutely. And obviously, but, for the most part, I would say, there are a lot more people now who do believe that I would say that a lot higher percentage of the people who are involved now believe that something, mysterious or murky or not okay is afoot. Because really, it's a self-selecting community in that regard, where if you're like, oh, okay, this story is nicely wrapped up with a bow, I don't really care more about it. You're not going to be on streams every week. You're not going to be on blogs every week. Why would you? You're going to go do something else, But if you believe that something is going on, then you're going to stay around. You're going to try to figure that out. So again, I would think that the percentage of people in the community who are of that belief is I would say has to be higher than it was, in May of 2020.
That's a great point. I didn't think about it that way.
It has certainly changed to some. I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, I was just saying I didn't think about it from that vantage point. Like we have said, up until this last month, we were in it until we felt closure or felt like we had a satisfied conclusion. We feel that we're going to go through the next month at the court hearing, then we're pivoting to something else. Exactly for that reason, because we feel now. I actually put out a video last night on the 9 Mile Hole and the totality of the last 2 years of didn't think Jack was actually a person. We found out he was a person. He's the finder. We actually have pictures and it goes through the 2 years, and it was like total skepticism to, I have closure. Everybody laughs because I get that. I've gotten that more than once, but this time it's for realsies, guys.
Or is it? Well, that's the question.
Right. But I mean, like, everybody goes on that journey, you know. Again, I started, you know, in June of 2020. I was in the same boat as everybody else. You know, I got to go on a slightly different chronology of it because I got to know who Jack was before that, you know, not before that, but before other people did, you know, in the fall and winter of 2020. But, you know, everybody has to go through that. And I went through that too. And that kind of speaks to what you were raising a second ago, the idea that, you know, even after putting out, you know, the hardcover of Chasing the Thrill, you know, I did spend the last year, you know, talking to a lot of different searchers, you know, people who would bring up various conspiracy theories, you know, with some exceptions. Don't get me wrong. I did feel it was important to try to hear them out because, you know, I didn't know 100%, you know, I felt pretty confident that Jack is essentially who he says he was, and things happened mostly as he says this. But, you know, as I've said many times, you know, there are questions he wouldn't answer for me. You know, there's things that he wouldn't specifically deal with. And, you know, some people would come in and say, oh, you know, I have the real truth about this. Only I know the truth about that. And, you know, you guys obviously get a lot of this too. And, you know, for the most part, I would try to listen because I feel a certain, you know, sense of responsibility to that, to try to, you know, use the experiences I've had to say, okay, you know, is there something that needs to be interrogated here? Is there something that needs to really be knocked out? You know, and the reality is, you know, I didn't find anything that was, you know, going to say, oh, this whole thing is a giant conspiracy and, you know, blah, blah, blah. I just, you know, but I think it's important, you know, in a situation where you don't have 100% of the facts to at least be open to that as a concept. And that's, you know, what I tried to be, because particularly, you know, I have had access to various people in this that other people haven't had. And that I think creates an additional sense of responsibility for me.
Now, you didn't talk about the family. Do you have contact with the family as well, or is it pretty much Jack?
No, I mean, I have, again, my contact was almost always with Forrest. So, you know, that's really no different than before, you know? So they do their thing. I do my thing.
Okay, fair enough. And then you guys, if you want to go and see, talks a little bit about Reddit, in case you want to know a little bit more about Reddit. We won't dive too much into that. Netflix, that's a point of conversation. I will tell you, you said what, it's 1,400 words?
Yes.
I think there's like 12 topics in there that will, to me, it was every poignant point that, except for one thing.
Okay, what do you got? I'm actually curious.
I'm going to ask it in two parts. One, do you know the location?
No, I don't. I mean, not in the way that other people, you know, I know what everybody knows right now. You know, I have never known the location in any way from Jack or anything like that. And I note in the book that I kind of go where, generally speaking, where I think it probably is, you know, in the epilogue and based on a lot of the work that other people have done. But no, I have never had any special knowledge of the location whatsoever. You know, I believe with all the stuff that's come out recently that it's where everyone else seems to think it is too. I have no reason to doubt that. And that all makes sense to me, but I have never had any special knowledge of it. And even after this, you know, I haven't gotten Jack to confirm that for me or anything like that. So I don't have any knowledge about that is different than what other people would have.
Okay.
Yeah. So go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say we did get a super chat. Just going back to the value of the chest real quick. Madison Badger, thank you, says, what considerations would go into appraising the value of the olive jar at the auction house? That's a good point because for a lot of searchers, I think the olive jar is the most important piece. They want to know what that autobiography says of Forrest. And I would have no idea how they could put value on that.
You know, I don't want to waste your 1999, but man, I have no idea. I mean, that's the kind of thing that it's, you know, the value of that is in the eye of the beholder. You know, to someone who doesn't care about this, it is worth the value of an olive jar, which isn't much, and a sealed olive jar too. So, but you know, to other people, it's worth a whole lot of money. So I doubt that's the kind of item that was actually, you know, sent out for appraisal. You know, purely guesswork here, but they probably have. You know, they separate this thing out and they probably separate into, you know, gems and fine jewels and, you know, gold, blah, blah. And then there's probably like miscellaneous, and miscellaneous probably sits on a shelf for, you know, however long until the rest of it is done. I can't imagine they sent that thing out anywhere.
Well, and I'm assuming when it goes up, and this is a total assumption on my part, when it goes up, it's going to be, Jack, what's the minimum you would take? We'll set the reserve and then we'll just see where it goes. And this will probably set some precedents for some other valuing later or something.
Wouldn't it be so cool to have like the whole auction house scene, you know, on this guy, you know?
We're going to watch it. We're going to watch it.
So awesome if that actually happened. You ever see those like Meekum car auction things?
Yeah.
Oh, those are so great. Like I would love it if they did this kind of thing with that.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. And as far as we know, the treasure chest and its contents are still at Heritage Auctions today.
Well, again, I think they sent out a lot of things to
Be
other
afraid.
specialists. So,
Okay.
you know, I can't speak to my guess is that not all of it is there, you know, that some parts of it are at other places and some parts of it are there. But I don't want to say something I'm not 100% sure of, but my understanding was that it was, you know, sent to places that appraise it because they don't have everybody for everything on site, you know,
True.
but that essentially it's with Heritage as under their control.
Yeah.
Okay.
And insurance, things that you brought up that I didn't even think of, like, and you have to insure it when it goes out because people lose stuff gets stolen, all of that. So it's under Heritage's control, but it might not be all at Heritage physically right now.
Right. That's my understanding. So.
Yeah. Well, and I actually called on Friday before I think they were told not to say anything. And the woman verified, the receptionist, and she transferred me. And by Monday, we don't know what you're referring to. We don't know. And so that's why everyone was like, "Hey, bro, you're making it up." I called. I'm like, no, no. So I love it that
that does not sound crazy to me at all.
Yeah. So, and you kind of end your epilogue, I almost think, with the dun dun dun, saying, "Is this ever really going to end?" In your opinion, what do you think will be enough? Like, we're going to pivot, but there's more activity on the forums, because I own one of the forums. There's more activity now than before the find. Really? What do you think is going to make this? I know it's very well. I remember we maybe hit 100. We're already at 200 right now in the room. I dropped a video yesterday. It already has 100 comments and 1,500 views on where it could be. What do you think it's going to take? Because Jack supposedly can't talk, or not supposedly, we know he's not talking. Forrest obviously can't talk. What do you think would be enough? Because you end it perfectly, because it's like, will this ever really end? For this room not to have 200 or 300 or 400, which we've had in the last few months, what do you think will make that happen? And do you think it's likely that that will happen?
I mean, I think you really have to have every question answered. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who feel like every question is never going to be answered, you know, and obviously there's a sliding scale with all that stuff, you know, where some people are more demanding than others in that regard. But I mean, I think that there are still valid questions out there. And until those are all fully dealt with, I don't think this goes away, you know? So I do think, you know, with everything that's coming out now in court and that kind of stuff, that there is going to be a diminishment in interest after this, you know, kind of, you know, sense of, okay, now we really probably have some real answers here. And, you know, we can have some understanding of, okay, what happened? You know, okay, we think we know where it was. We got that now. But I think there's still enough out there that's going to give this, you know, a long, long life for a really a long time. Because I don't think all the questions will ever fully be answered, because some of this stuff is unknowable to all of us who, you know, were not there for every moment of it. And, you know, I mean, there's even stuff that if you're Jack, you don't know the full answers about some things that Forrest did and that kind of stuff, you know? So if somebody's trying to really understand the full breadth of this thing, you know, there's always stuff to kind of go at and poke at. And look, it's a treasure hunt. It's a crazy, nutsy thing that existed, you know, in this world that shouldn't have in so many levels. And it's a cool story. So I actually think it is going to have a life, you know, that continues, you know, as you said, it's probably, you know, going to not be the same level forever, but it's, you know, it's very interesting to me to hear that, you know, it is having a bigger moment now. And I'm not totally surprised by that when I think about that with all the stuff that's happening, you know, in the court case and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really don't think it's ever going to just become something from the past. I think it's, you know, for at least a long period of time, going to have some kind of legs to it.
Okay.
Well, I think for a lot of us that there's a small hope in the back of our minds that we don't want to give up on, that whoever does eventually buy it or buys a piece of it may just rehide something and do another treasure hunt that maybe continues it on.
I hadn't actually thought about that, but that would be very cool if that happened.
It would be great. Yeah, I think a lot of people are holding out hope that happens. We'll see.
So you guys need to gear up your questions, because this is my last one. And then Dan has been gracious. He's on the East Coast and he has a lot to deal with family and things. So did Jack give you any update if he is ever going to talk, tell? He said maybe in the future type of thing. Now we have some Yellowstone intervention, so things may have changed. Do you think he will come out and give any more than he has?
You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's some quotes from him in the epilogue, which I'm sure you saw, you know, about why he has kind of stepped back. And I think he's genuine in the stuff he's saying there, you know, that he really doesn't feel like in some senses he's doing good. He thinks he's doing more harm, you know, in some ways. I don't know. It's this is purely me. This is not anything he's told me. This is me just speculating and like thinking out loud here. But I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he does, if all this stuff is kind of died down and perhaps things are a little less heated, and a little less crazy all the time. I don't think I'd be totally shocked if he like really, quote unquote, told all in some way, shape or form. I don't know about really told all, but told more for sure. Because I think he honestly, in my dealings with him, he generally has, spoken sympathetically about, wanting people to know as much as they can if he can tell them, that because he thinks of it as a searcher, like he wanted answers, he wanted closure, he wanted all that things, he got it in a way nobody else got. But I think, he was always very, cognizant of the idea that he took something away from other people when he found it, that he ended that dream for a lot of people. And I think, without saying he felt guilty per se, I think he did have an understanding that sucks. And so, I think that, for what he has told me is vast majority of people who send him nice notes and are curious about stuff and all that kind of stuff, I think he feels like he wants to, generally speaking, try to do something for them. But, it's not a great time for that. It's obviously, there's a lot going on. But I would not be like blown away if at some point down the road, he's more open than he is now. That would not really surprise me.
Okay. Well, Goldilocks had a question from the room of what would you like answered that you don't have answered yourself? I thought that was an interesting question.
That is a good question.
And I'm assuming she means from Jack, right? If you could ask Jack a question that he has to.
Well, I've asked Jack a lot of questions. You didn't.
Well, I was going to say that, or Forrest, even though he's not. I mean, just what would you like answered?
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's probably where I would. That's where I would most go. Is that the specifics of the clues and understanding what Fenn meant and things like what did the back end of the poem mean? What was that stuff there? Even if we figured out kind of a mapped location, I would probably want to know stuff more from Fenn than from Jack. That, okay, what did you really mean with this? How did you put it all together? Take me through that journey in your mind's eye. Like if I could really sit down with Fenn now after the fact, now that we all know what we know, okay, take me on your journey with you and explain to me what all this stuff means. And Marvel gaze, what does that mean, man? What do you got here? Tell me what it all is. That's probably what I would like to do the most, and really understand what his motivation was and his mentality and why these things meant something to him. And just that would probably be the coolest thing for me, I think.
Well, I don't know if you know it because I know you're not watching every week. We met up with Shiloh a couple months ago. Well, maybe it was late last year. And he said he's considering writing a book because
yes, I've certainly heard that.
Yeah. And I think he knows more of this, maybe the sentimental stories, the back end of
I would not be surprised about that.
And I think even though Forrest has gone, we have a shot in understanding a lot more if he considers. And what he said was he's the only one in the family that would even consider it. Yeah. And he was very thoughtful. He gave us 3 generations of fishing lures as a prize for our poker tournament. So he's still engaged and he still appreciates, like you said, a lot of the community, like Jack says, a lot of the community. So here's my final question. Knowing what you know right now, would you have wanted to be the finder of the Forrest Fenn treasure chest?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've thought about that a lot, actually. No effing way, man. Like, that seems like the worst thing ever, It's like, if it was worth like 30 million, yeah, okay, fine. I can deal with like the rest of my life being a pain in the ass, I'll hire security or whatever. But like, no, absolutely not. Like, I think one of my last chapters was called like the next best thing to finding a treasure, which is, when I got to go see the treasure and actually, touch it and all that, which was again, like super cool. Yeah. But like, okay, I got to do that, like I'm good, like
you have no one coming to your house. You didn't have to move.
What he has dealt with, absolutely not. Like that sounds like the worst thing now, which is funny because I wouldn't have thought that, in like 2017 or something like that. I would not have thought that. But now I'm like, nope, I'm all good. Yes, exactly. Yeah, lottery, absolutely. You know, totally, 100%.
He's kind of become the villain because he ended the chase for so many searchers, and then he's just trying to sell it and move on with his life, and he's got all these legal issues to deal with. The
whole Batman thing, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain if you do it right. It's like, all right, well, there's something to that.
So I guess I'll bring this up and just ask your opinion. There's speculation that Forrest Fenn made a video of possibly the location of the solve before he died. What? What's that? Oh, well, I'm just saying.
It's in the court documents. that there is a video of Forrest, and they. Okay, go ahead.
I don't remember that part. Anyway, what do you think? Do you think that happened or no? Do you think there is a video?
That's not something I have zero knowledge of that. I would be surprised if that was the case, but I don't know. I mean, that is I know nothing about that. So that's like news to me, man.
I don't remember that being a. Yeah, maybe you're right. K-Pro knows all about the court cases, so maybe she's right. But they don't think they ever said what was in the video. You know what I mean?
Toby just got back into the chase, and now he's reading all of them. Before that, I didn't like doing it. I read every single one of every, and I have
all the motions,
like 462 pages that we have read, and a lot of it has gone out. And well, we'll wait for that for another day, because then we'll be here an hour.
Well, I'm super curious about that. I mean, that is interesting. At least if there is something like that, that's crazy. That's cool. But no, I have zero knowledge of that whatsoever. But if there is a video, yeah, I'd like to see it, I guess. You know?
The funny part is,
right? That would be the closure I think people would need to hear it from him himself.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
But there would still be some, because some have already said with this, how this ending happened. I wouldn't even believe it. I would think he was contriving it.
There are always going to be.
Yes.
Right.
Well, those are all the questions that I have, and we said we weren't going to take too long today, so I want to thank you guys, or thank you for being here. I'm actually going to stay on and talk a little bit about the video from last night, but here is the book, guys. And
yes, beautiful new cover. Look at that. Whoever did that, the people at the publisher. I like this one. It looks like a Clive Cussler novel.
They should have put the X right over Yellowstone, but that's okay. So yeah,
whoever does these things has no idea about the treasure or anything.
Right.
It's just some designer at Random House who does this. I actually think they did a great job, but it's funny how detached you are from the process of that,
right.
Yeah.
So there it is. It's on Amazon. The link is right in the description of this video, everybody. You've got 4 different formats. Dan Barbarisi is the author. Thank you, Dan. You answer definitely. I think the book answers some questions for some people. Some people don't believe it, but I think most of the reasonable searchers kind of understand how things have transpired. But I don't think anybody guessed that this is what would have happened from the day Jack found it until now. There's been some crazy twists and turns, but
that's why it's a cool story. That's why we're all still here, in that you couldn't predict what was going to happen here. It's such a crazy thing, and it continues to be. So
exactly.
I mean, it's kind of a crazy thing. And we were all, in a sense, look, we all got to live this. So that's certainly memories to tell the grandkids.
And Rudy Green says there are 9 hints in the new cover. So you guys need to buy this book for the cover. He's kidding. Some of you, but there
are. I mean, nobody told me.
Somebody asked me, well, why would I buy the whole new book? To me, this is a part of the whole journey portion. I'm keeping 1 copy of TTOTC. I am keeping, Too Far to Walk, 1 copy of each of them, and both versions, because this really is, I think it's a huge update. I would love if they would consider an update to the update, a year from now, because there is so much that happens.
I mean, I honestly would, I really, really would. It's the kind of thing where, maybe at some point I can do one to the online version. I mean, getting them to print a new version takes a lot of resources, but maybe I can do something to the online. I can convince them to do that, to the one that goes to Kindles and, and that kind of stuff. Because I'm happy to do it. And as we know, there's a lot happening very recently that obviously was way after the, time that they closed it up, but which is killer to me. But, the way I've said this before, but, my hope in doing this is, for people who are going to pick this thing up 10 years from now and say, okay, what the heck happened in that crazy treasure hunt, and have some level of closure and some level of finality. And I hope I got them closer to that, even if you can't get it, unfortunately, all the way. So I would love to do an update to it, but it sadly is completely not up to me. So.
Yeah. Okay. Vertigo has asked.
And,
I saw the question. Many people have pointed back. Can you ask his question?
Right.
So there it is. Go ahead, Mike.
Does anything? Yeah. Okay. In retrospect, now that you have a good idea of the treasure location,
that's a really good question. I would probably say no. I can't think of anything offhand. So I've said this before, but I was in the days that I was playing Searcher, so that I could be a searcher and understand the feelings of one. I was a pretty shit ass searcher. I really was not very good at it. And I just mostly listened to what Beep told me and was okay, we're going to go here. And I was okay. But so I generally speaking thought it was in New Mexico, so I wasn't really as focused on Yellowstone, although we did go and do some Yellowstone searches. Those were mostly, him, that I was kind of tagging along for. But I would not say that anything really stands out. It's funny. That is actually a very good question though. Because that's something I had not thought about before.
So Forrest never said, "Have you ever been fishing up in Yellowstone?"
Right. I know. No, you never said anything like that. I mean, we certainly, talked about his, time in Yellowstone. He's what you think he was. He was very whimsical and all that, talking about he's a boy. And, I always thought that was the best argument for Yellowstone, just his emotional connection to it. And that stuff, all resonated. But I can't think of anything that has to do with, what we think the spot to be like in any way, shape, or form, nothing that would be, like the guy was good. The guy was good at what he did in terms of, talking and not really saying much in that regard. And also we weren't really talking for most of the time. We just weren't talking in those ways. We weren't talking about where the treasure was. We were talking about things about the hunt and about, where it would go and the controversies around it when that stuff was happening and, why he did it to some extent and, those things. So we didn't really talk a lot about like the where of it. That just kind of wasn't how our conversations unfolded most of the time,
Right.
I tried not to really go there for the most part because that wasn't what I was there to do. That wasn't what it was about. It was about understanding him and the world of the hunt more. So we didn't really deal with that kind of stuff so much, but that is interesting. And I can't think of anything certainly off the top of my head, but I will actually think on that a little more because it is kind of a cool question, but off the top of my head, no.
That would be a great another epilogue if you if you realize there was something. Yeah.
Well, and Dan is going to be doing some other interviews. I know somebody posted up on our Facebook that you have one coming up on the 26th. So the
Los Alamos Library.
Yeah, yes. You're going to see some people from here. They'll follow just to see what little tidbits, because that's what we're kind of at right now. We had this huge last month, but before that, we had little breadcrumbs and it ebbs and flows. So. Yeah.
That ties into this question. It says, I'd love a signed copy. Is there anybody, without meeting you in person, is there any way somebody could get a signed copy? Is there like,
I have had this question before and I don't have a good answer for it, as I say with seemingly so many things lately. But so what they do at the beginning of publication is they get these things called book plates. And I signed like literally 400 of them. And they sent them back to me and I send them back to the publisher. And they put them in some number of books and they put them in special places and, here you get a signed copy. I know it was possible to order a signed copy at some point. But I don't really know what happens. I assume they've exhausted all those at this point. I really don't know. And because of the pandemic, I didn't get to do what I normally would have done, which is like kind of a quasi book tour, where I probably would have at least done Santa Fe and New York, certainly Boston, a couple other easy places. But, thanks COVID. So, and you don't really do that for the paperback version. So the short answer is not really. I'm going to ask the publisher about doing another round of book plates so that they can send those to people who request them through them, because that is something that I know you can do. But as of right now, I have not done any of that. But so I actually really appreciate that. That is super cool to ask. And, it does make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. But I have terrible non-answer for you. And so I'm really sorry. That kind of stuff.
So they would really have to go to where you're doing a live Q&A, or in other words, meet you in person somewhere public. Maybe then you would sign a book, right?
Yeah, I'm obviously happy to do it. I'm not like, I'm going to hold back my signature. I'm really important. I'm completely unimportant. It's like an honor that anyone would want that. But it's just a logistical problem,
Two more questions. Packer Jack says, how's Beep doing?
Oh, great question.
Yeah. Good one, Packer Jack.
He actually, so he moved to Nicaragua. Where he lives on an island there
with Jack,
and is having a great time as far as I can tell.
Sorry.
So that's the Beep update. He's living in Central America and absolutely loving it. So he got out of the frigid Toronto, Ontario and cold and went to the complete opposite. But he's doing great. I haven't talked to him in a month or two, but last I checked in with him, he was doing great.
And for everybody who doesn't know, he was your kind of search partner back in the beginning, right? For the Forrest.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was like my kind of he clued me into the whole hunt. He's the one who got me started and said oh my God, we have to go be treasure hunters, and oh my God, you got to write a book about this. And I was like, yes, great idea. And also was then my search partner throughout, and we went on all these adventures and stuff, and had a lot of fun with it, and did 99% of the actual ideification of all of our searches because I was like, whatever. But yeah, just great guy. So no, I am almost positive he is not writing a book. He has been for a long time working on various video game projects where he designs games, video games and board games. So he does a lot of work in those areas. But when the next one is coming out, I will let people know. He's a very smart guy. But he's in Nicaragua, so living it up.
Interesting.
Do you have plans for another book, non-treasure related?
Yeah. Right now, no.
Okay.
You know, which is so. I mean, you've seen the way I do things, which is very much like to throw oneself into the situation, and you know, I like things where you don't know the ending. You know, and those projects are hard to find. My last book was very similar. You know, the one before this, Dueling with Kings, and so you know, it's very hard to do those kind of things in a pandemic world. Where in-person access, while it is getting better now, fortunately, it's been very hard to do that kind of stuff, the kind of reporting I would like to do, where you really are on the ground and everybody's open and accepting of that. And also, I have little kids, and it's just not that easy to, you know, spend a ton of time out in places, you know, and do 2 weeks of reporting on something when you have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So, you know, my thought is that when I can get them both into elementary school, you know, some options will open up to me that have been closed off for the last few years. And if there's a really good project that comes down the pike, I would consider that. But like, you know, I've had some things pitched to me, I've had some things offered, and nothing has really piqued my fancy yet. Because like one thing that, you know, people don't realize, like, okay, so I'm not like a full-time author. Like I have a day job, you know, I work at The Athletic where I'm the senior editor there. And so, you know, that's good because it doesn't require me to have like a level of urgency of, okay, that book just went out the door, I need to be working on the next one, or else like, you know, I don't have an income. So, you know, this is, you know, essentially for me, largely a side thing. So you got to pick a good project because you're stuck with it for a number of years. And if you don't like your subject, it just becomes like a cross to bear, you know, and just not fun. And so you really got to pick it right. And you got to have the right timing, you have the right situation, and you got to have the right subject. So I am very, very picky about that stuff. And, you know, unfortunately, treasure hunts don't fall from the sky all the time like this one did in my mind. Like, wait, there's a treasure hunt? You got to be kidding me, you know? So the next time something like this comes along, yes, please let me know. In that sense of, you know, like, wait, that really exists? Like anything that's your first impression, that's where I want to go, you know?
Nice.
So
Nice.
Another question from the chat. Do you have any plans to be in a documentary? Like somebody thought you signed an NDA with somebody or something, but do you have any plans?
I've definitely not signed any NDAs, but I mean, I was involved heavily with the I never signed an NDA, but okay.
We all have, all of us on the payroll.
Jigsaw project. So I was involved with the Jigsaw project, which, you know, unfortunately got, you know, was actually going to go with Discovery, and that was greenlit. That was like going. That thing was down the road, and then the Discovery merged with Warner Media, and they killed like $30 million worth of projects. It was like a big thing in Hollywood, and this was among them. So that was the end of that. But you know, other than that, I've had discussions with various places, but I have certainly signed nothing. So, you know, that's not a thing that happened. But
so everybody contact Dan about your documentary.
Yes, I'll call him. Yeah.
Okay. One other question. When your boys are older, would you ever make
line, Mike?
Yeah, one more question. Last one. When your boys are older, would you ever make the trip to 9 Mile Hole and say, "Hey guys, remember that book I wrote? This is probably."
That's a good question, Mike. You know what? I'm sorry that I was a dick about that a second, because that's a really good question. I have not thought about that. But you know, maybe I think I would. Okay, so yes, because I would love for them to see Yellowstone. And so, like, I just was so, you know, I had never been before doing this, and I was so unbelievably blown away by it. I really was. That I would love for them to see that. So I would love to take them to that. And then if I'm already there, you know, like in theory, like, you know, so would I make a special trip out there for it? No, almost definitely not. But, you know, do I want to go to Yellowstone again? Yes. Do I want them to see that? Yes. Having all that in mind, would I like to be there and see the general area where I think this was? Yes. So so short answer, I think, is actually probably. And so thanks for putting something on my, you know, 2029 vacation docket.
There you go.
Well, in 2026, or I think it's in 2026, Center of the West up in Cody, Wyoming is opening up what do they call it? The time capsule of Forrest Fenn's. So maybe that's cool. The time to align it, because maybe that's where our answers are going to be.
Anything's 2026, I will be doing the World Cup. So that was what I'm going to spend my time doing that summer. But maybe that's an interesting thought. So
yeah. Okay. Do you have any last questions, Mike?
No, that's it.
That was a pretty good place. That was a really good question. I actually really like that. So thank you for
coming on the show. We really appreciate it. The book's on Amazon. Everybody check it out if you don't have it. If you want to see the epilogue, definitely pick it up. And you never know, the story continues on. Who knows what's going to happen in the next months to come.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Well, I'm going to let Dan drop off. I want to talk just a minute about our video. All the people that are still in all the little nuances. So we'll let you go. And thank you so much because I know you have a lot going on.
All right.
Tonight.
Pleasure getting to talk, guys. I'll see you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay, so I wanted to give a small update on dropped a video last night, and it really, some were like, why did you put in the stuff about Jack and outing? What does that have to do with 9 Mile Hole? 2 years ago, I was in a place of, like many of you, I don't think I was as open about it all the time. I was a huge skeptic. And I think that built evidence to show where we are today or where I am today. And so the one thing that I want to thank publicly, I'm not going to say the person's name unless they want the person's name being said. The person that believes that he knows where the other slip up is has been located. So I am hoping.
Wait a minute. We got to have some breaking news tonight. So if you have no idea what K-Pro's talking about, I just put a link into the chat. It is a PowerPoint that K-Pro created and explained. It's an hour-long video, but it builds the case in a concise and logical way for the 9 Mile Hole location. I just put the link. If you haven't watched it, check it out. And then go ahead, K-Pro. Say that again.
Yeah, so in the middle of it, it talks about the slip-ups. And the one slip-up that I think everybody, many searchers recognize is when Forrest says, my favorite ... and trails off from the California Sunday magazine. I think that's what it's called.
Fishing
and
hole.
The other one has not really, there hasn't been consensus over. And really what took him to 9 Mile Hole. Well, a gentleman by the name of Woody out over on Dale's site, and he's on some of the other forums, put up 2 or 3 days after and said, I bet you I know what one of the slip ups was. Forrest was in a video and it had 2 maps behind him, and it basically focuses you down to 9 Mile Hole, which at the time, none of us knew 9 Mile Hole. So somebody went back and I think Rudy is the one that actually alerted me to that. I put it in the video and said, hey, if anybody knows how to get in touch with this gentleman, we would love to see what that is. So I now have the contact information of that gentleman. I have made contact. I just made contact right before this this video started. So hopefully, and maybe he knows one of you better. I don't care who it goes out to or who gets it out. I would just love to see what they are talking about.
Hooli says the dogged reporter, not that one, right? The dogged reporter.
Remember? I don't know what that means.
Oh, remember the reporter that got bit by a dog or something? The dogged reporter.
Yeah, isn't that the California Sunday magazine one?
She said the Mary Catherine video. I don't know if that.
I don't know.
Hooli, but what you're referring to is not that reporter. So it's somebody else, somebody different. And in the 9 Mile Hole video, she explains, or she says, if anybody knows who this person is, well, somebody did reach out and say, this is the person's contact info. So I say we have them on the show if they've got.
It'd be awesome. Oh, Toby says the Mary Catherine was an audio only, so that wouldn't be it. So it's kind of interesting. It's 5 seconds of a 1 hour video. I'm sorry, at the beginning, it was about a half an hour. And then I gave it to a couple people privately and they said, add this and add this and add this. And I added some stuff like Justin Fields' video. I had never seen that. That was super cool. I walked through the logic with him when I was watching his video. Yeah.
So I'll bring it up just for anybody who's listening that hasn't listened in a while. What do you know about this Forrest Fenn video about the 9 clues, K-Pro? You said it was in a court, and I don't even remember that. It's mentioned in one of the court documents.
You know what? It might be. You know what? You might be right because it was on Harry's. Harry said, I asked Zoe under the deposition about the video, and Summers objected based on something, and he asked, and we can bring up Harry's later.
You're right. No, you are right. They do mention a video. You're absolutely
yes,
right.
And
there's always deposition, so check that out.
Yeah, and Zoe's deposition is not public, so this is just hearsay from Harry. But everything Harry has said and put out, so. Yeah. To your knowledge, did F fill the time capsule by himself? I didn't even know about the time capsule. I think it was Stephanie 30acre that was on here a few shows back, and said something about the time capsule. I found that I remember something vaguely years back, but I don't have any direct information on the time capsule. So there you go. There you have it. So
Billy Shaw says true. There is a video, but we don't know what's in it. That's true.
Yeah, I believe it goes over the 9 clues. Like, why else would Forrest do a video like before?
Right.
Like,
yeah,
that's true. I think it probably is something that would help in court if he needs it. It doesn't. I am with Toby when he says The only thing that really needs to be proven in court is did Forrest pass? And everything else is helpful. But I think that's the essence of, and, did Forrest move? So it sounds like it's going to come down to two things. There is supposedly from a Kraken side, a video of Forrest moving or harassing or whatever, Forrest doing something. So if there is Forrest, like with the treasure chest, he's a little old man running around with it. Okay. And the death certificate. So I believe those are going to be the major parts of evidence. There's a lot of other stuff in the list, but I don't think it's going to be, I can't see this going on for 2 days just because, Your Honor, I believe Forrest is alive. Here's the death certificate, and here's where he was cremated, and here is the, I don't see how that can take 2 days. But and here's the video of Forrest, and it's probably going to be some 90-year-old man running around. I don't know. I'm not going to put my opinion in. What is it going to come out that So anyway, he may not get back past time bar, right? Because the judge is going to talk to that first or decide on that first. So he may get out. I don't know, being pro se, being this far along and a counterclaim, I'd be surprised if the judge allows it a year and a half later, but I don't know the precedent in the court enough to know. So I'm not going to pretend that I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, Fripp, all we know is there was a meeting between Forrest Fenn and Yellowstone, and then they gave the location. Forrest confirmed where he hit it. Jack confirmed same spot where he picked it up, and they went to the location. That's all we know. I mean, if that would come out, that'd be great, but something tells me it never will. And something tells me that's why they had the Zoom to begin with.
When Summer, there's not an S. Summer actually puts in the court document, we are being very mindful of the SERPA.
Right. And when he says we're talking about the park, you guys make your own decision, guys. Right. Some people will never believe it no matter what. And other people, you look at the evidence that we have and the conjecture, because that's what some of it is, but you kind of put it all together and you see where it takes you. So some people have done that and some people haven't. That's okay. You don't have
But it will be, I do have to say, we're not going to stop today because there's still a lot of pieces that we went through too many months of nothing. There is so much here. Do you remember 3 weeks ago, I think it was, when we found out that there was supposed to be a poem in the treasure chest that Dale, that was huge breaking news. We have forgotten about that. That was So, yeah.
Toby says, I'll believe it when I see the GPS coordinates that Jack gave Ranger Davis. We'll never say never, but will we ever know?
I don't believe Jack. I agree with Toby. He also made an opinion that Jack is not going to be deposed because he doesn't have a subpoena. I don't think he's going to be at trial. I don't think we're going to hear it from Jack. And I think we know why, because the government intervened, in my opinion. I don't think he can. Now, here's what I think. If I were to play this out right now, total conjecture, just my opinion based on just me. Mm-hmm. I believe the court case is going to happen. I believe McCracken will lose. I believe it may go into appeal, however that works, but I think that's pretty much, it's done. And I believe Shiloh will come out and tell us, hopefully the 9 clues, but definitely 9 Mile Hole.
Right.
My opinion.
I would hope.
My opinion. I think he wants to, I think he likes a part of this community. I think we all do. And I think he still sees some good, he gave us the nicest gift that we could have. He sat down one night and put that all together. And
what is it he gave us, Gabriel?
He gave us fishing lures, guys.
In and of itself, huh? I don't know, but it's weird how it ties in, isn't it? It's kind of cool. All right. I just want to know what all the talk Forrest did about borders and edges and boundaries have to do with 9 Mile Hole. Well, Forrest talked about a lot of things in The Thrill of the Chase that it doesn't seem like had to do with the solve. So, I don't know. Maybe borders is part of it. I don't know. A lot of us want to know what Forrest meant, but we're not going to be able to because Forrest is gone, unfortunately. So, don't know.
Okay. That's my opinion. Yes, JC. When Shannon, myself, and Cynthia spent a lovely afternoon at the Forrest Estate, or I should say the Shiloh Estate now. He mentioned he wants to, I don't remember exactly how he put it. He said, I'm considering writing a book. I do think the community, not deserves, like, I want to do right by the community. I don't know exactly the words. There's just too many.
Right.
But
And again, he could change his mind. It's not, that's not in concrete, but that's what he wants to do. What will he be able to do? You know, when the government intervenes and says, "Hey, Jack, you can't give that location." Can Shiloh? Because to me, that's confirmation. If Shiloh comes out, I'm sorry, but that's confirmation in my mind. What?
I believe the only people that brokered a deal was Forrest and Jack. I believe just like Cynthia just put it out. Yellowstone hasn't attacked her. I think Shiloh can come out.
Oh, and I think so too. I would hope so. Yeah, I mean, yes. And if Shiloh says, "Yeah, I know where he hit it because he told me before he died," I'm going to believe that personally. I know some people are going to be like, "He's making it up," or "This is what the family wants you to believe." There's no reason, I don't think, for them to lie. I mean, but yeah, it's just my opinion. So we all have our own opinions, don't we? So. Yeah, it's been an interesting, 5-6 years for most of us, longer for some people, shorter.
I started in 2015. So what is that? 7 years for me? Yeah. And this is like, I think the closing chapter, but I think the major piece of it, at least for me, but I know some people need a little bit more. Okay, let me ask you this. If Shiloh and put yes or no, if Shiloh came out and said, "Here, I knew because he was my grandfather. I lived here. Right. Here's the 9 clues, and here's where it was located." Not saying where it was, not saying 9 Mile Hole. If Shiloh came out and went through the 9 clues and the final location, would that be enough for you? Yes or no?
It definitely would for me. Yeah. Right. It definitely would for me. But for some people, I bet you it wouldn't be. For some people, if their solution wasn't right, they'll never be satisfied. They're never going to.
It has to be their solution or nothing.
Right.
Okay. Lisa says yes. Does anybody? Okay.
That will not happen. Well, we'll see.
What will not happen?
That I think Shiloh would ever come out with it. I think that's what he meant.
That's what he told us he was going to do.
Right. But he has to actually follow through with it and do it. So.
And I don't think he needs to write a full-fledged book. I think he just needs to make a 5-minute video. He can come on our show. He can go on Cynthia. He can go on Tote. He can go on anywhere and just say it quickly. Yes. Yes.
So hang on. Okay. Mizuno 33 says before said he didn't tell anyone. So no, but he told the Yellowstone Ranger. He told the deputy ranger. And this was before he died. He said he never told him. Remember, 2 people's secret if one's dead. That's before the treasure was found. After the treasure was found, I don't see why. If I'm Forrest Fenn's grandfather and after it's, a month after it's been found, I'm going to ask, "So where was it?" And I don't see why Forrest would not tell Shiloh. But hey, my opinion.
Dustin White, your ears must be burning because over on Thor, they're talking about you. Remember the day it was found? You said you were in chat and you said someone named Jack found it. I saw something on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And then you went back to look for it because we're like, what? Show us. And it was gone. And so some people are like, "Who's this Dustin guy? Is he involved? Is it?" And we're like, no, he's a good guy. He probably saw something. And so everybody's debating right now about you. And I was like, no. We've met Dustin. I don't think he's a huge conspiracy part of this. I think it's just like he said. He saw it. Somebody deleted it. And I would have loved to know who posted that. But anyway.
What do you think Shiloh's waiting for? Well, I think the legal stuff to finish, the probate course to probably be done. Yeah, he said that to you guys.
He said that to us.
Yeah.
The court case has to settle. Now, here's the question that I have. Mm-hmm. If the probate hearing happens and McCracken, like I believe is going to happen, doesn't win,
of course,
if he appeals, how long of a process is that? And is that still going to hold things up?
If he appeals the ruling of the probate court case,
Yeah,
I don't know how that works. Well, who can you appeal to? I mean, I don't know.
I have no idea.
I guess Jamie has some money to spend on legal bills, huh? So yeah,
that is when they will make that determination as well. So, and then he'll need to determine whether. And gosh, but remember Erskine? Erskine got the first $100,000 bill and still appealed it all the way up to the 9th Circuit, and then appealed that appeal. I didn't even know you can appeal the appeal of the, and then he got another, he has $200,000 or $300,000 of bills coming.
Obi, shots fired. All right. I'm not going to show it though. Shiloh's waiting for the olive jar to be opened and the DB Cooper connection exposed. That would be funny. If I'm Shiloh, what do you do? You do another treasure hunt. You pay it forward in a remembrance or a legacy.
Your mom. his mom would kill him.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't. I think.
Well,
look at,
you're right. She would.
Even look at Randy. Randy's going, do I even put out a second Beacon Star after all this nonsense I've seen of
Yes,
suing?
you do,
And
Randy. Yes, you do.
Tumble Bear Load. He went and took it back because he didn't want all the crazies. Like, I think this would make anybody pause that is considering something like this.
Jeremy says, Dustin loved that episode of Expedition Unknown. Good job.
Good job.
That was a good job, Dustin. Yeah, for sure. All right. Yeah, that's it. Thank you to Dan Barbarisi for coming on. If you guys don't have the book, it is an interesting read for sure. Check it out. Buy it. It's there on Amazon, Kindle, audio, and all that. And yeah, Dan seems like a good guy. To me, he seems like he was pretty objective when he wrote the book and stayed impartial and was just trying to tell the story and was able to have some access to Jack before anybody else did. And Jack tells his story a little bit in the book, what he could tell. So there it is.
I like the update and the vindication button, heritage auction. We can go through all that. We don't need to hit the button 20 times, but it is funny.
We don't make things up, guys. We may be wrong about things, but we haven't made them up. That's for sure.
I think it's funny. It was like, and it said not only heritage auction in Dallas, like the one I called and confirmed.
Yeah, you said you were wrong.
No, you didn't. You were lying because you were just trying to make your monthly Chase Underground budgets or paycheck. Whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. Hint of Riches is still there, guys. If you want to discuss, and a lot of people are still discuss the Thrill of the Chase. And yeah, the court case is in about 3 weeks or so, maybe 3.5 weeks. The probate case, that is.
Yeah,
and,
it's like a month out. I think it's 13th. Yeah.
We'll go from there. After that, we'll see what happens. But the treasure chest, when's that going to be sold? We have the Forrest Fenn auction, the collection of Indian artifacts coming up. That'll be interesting if we can watch that live. And we'll see. And
then we're inviting Shiloh to come on, and it would just be a wonderful day. I actually think we'll have. Yes. And maybe we'll get, I don't know. He's not in a positive place, but maybe all of that will give Dale closure and Dale will come back and maybe Dale and Cynthia will come on and we can tell funny stories of yesteryear.
You're right.
I don't
know. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a good week. We'll be live again Thursday, Treasure Hunting Amusement Park. I don't know what we're going to talk about, so tune in and we'll talk about it together. So thanks, everybody.
We have no idea what will happen by next Monday in this crazy hunt. So, but check out that video. I would really like to hear some thoughts, especially about that Woody video. I'm hoping that Woody responds and we connect. But if not, he was a regular, I guess, over on Dale's site, which is pretty cool. So, we need to find that one. We need to find it. Yeah,
for sure. If it's about the map that was behind Forrest on the wall, right? Something like that. Yeah.
No, so what he said was there was a reporter and there was two searcher solves, and it was like locations on maps, and the only overlay to it was 9 Mile Hole or something like that. So he was like, why would he have those two up? Like he printed them out and put them up on the wall.
Yeah,
it's because it's the location.
That's a good question.
And that could be compelling enough with how Jack's mind thinks. I could see that being compelling because the second one has to be so compelling he just couldn't walk away.
Okay. Live audio of Jack to Dan.
Don't write me a book, kid.
All right. Well,
so one last question. Holy said, do we believe the video is still up? No, and here's why. There was a group of searchers, and I don't remember who they were. They went through every single one of those looking for that, and they could not find it. The great part is, and I hope he still has the same computer, he said he took screenshots of it and analyzed it, kind of like Jack probably did. So he has pictures of that video. If we could get that, then we could work backwards where it came from and analyze it, and we'll have weeks and weeks and weeks of content. Just jumping on, I'll have to go back and listen. Yes, Logical Search, we will.
And I've said this before. I guess I'll bring this up again because you just talk about these weird things after the fact. There was a searcher. This is years ago, but there was a searcher that was in Forrest Fenn's home, and they saw a Post-it note on the computer. And do you remember what was on the Post-it note? K-Pro?
GPS.
No, not GPS.
Yeah, there were GPS or
not GPS.
I know it was Yellowstone.
It was the zip code of Yellowstone. So it's like, what was that? Does that maybe a password is? What was that for? There's a Post-it note on his computer, had the zip code of Yellowstone. And yes, Yellowstone does have a zip code. So just weird things where you go, what's going on? I don't know. It's just now after the fact, of course, we pointed that and go, look, doesn't mean anything, but I think it is interesting.
Well, it is interesting to go back to, like, when I went back through TTOTC and I started looking at that, and it was like the information center. I knew the only touch table was at Yellowstone. It couldn't be more obvious now.
This is in this 9 Mile Hole video. I just put the link in the chat. There was a touch table that said, please touch. Where, K-Pro?
At the Madison Junction Information Center. I actually tried to get I took a picture of it when I went boots on the ground in 2016 and sent it to Forrest and said, touch table, haha, teachers with ropes.
Right.
And, I could probably find that picture, that email. It's all conjecture at this point, but I mean, it's just interesting to look back and think, what if?
Nice, gross, real nice. What about the side above his door that said 9 Mile Hole? That's pretty funny. All right. Is that a computer kiosk? I'm not sure. Oh, they said please touch? I don't think so.
No. I want to say it was pelts. So you actually walked up, and it might have been some stuffed animals next to pelt, but it was a tape. So you go into the information center, they sell stuff, and then they have some informational things. And I remember it fur, but I don't remember the rest of it. So it was different pelts, and it had a big thing that said, please touch. This is not, and the person came over and they're like, this is not like a museum, so you can actually touch. And I said, oh, like Forrest Fenn. And then she gave me a look, and I was like, ooh, don't mention to any ranger that you're a Forrest Fenn searcher. She didn't like that.
Thanks, Rooster. We appreciate that. Rooster, who we met at World Series of Fenn this year.
Yes, Rooster is not a female. I thought Rooster was female. And so did Forrest, I want you to know. Actually, that's probably where I got it from.
What? Hey, there you go. We got to get our Vegas treasure hunt going. Vegas Die and other than Vegas Die and Jingle Bell Rock. Maybe, we should do something here locally in Vegas. K-Pro. All right, keep us busy through the summer. All right, I just got one thing to say to all you searchers out there.
You, that's all you care about.
That's from Cowlazars to all of you. So thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you next time. Have a good one.